Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Everything Geek podcast. I'm your host, Ruari, and joining me today is a very special guest. We have Ferelith, best known for playing Eleni Syndulla in Star Wars The Bad Batch, Ned Wynert in Assassin's Creed Syndicate, female Brotherhood hopeful in Fallout 76, Sharon in Titans, Countess Gisella, Almassy in Rain, Sandra in 21 Thunders, Sam Maclean in Diggstown, Helen in Affinity, Lauren Riley in Deadly Secrets by the Lake, Sophia in Nailed, Maggie in Peaked in High School, Echo in Hollywood Reflections of Fable, and Tawny Hunn in Cardinal. Ferelith's behind-the-scenes credits include the Vancouver production assistant on The Beast of Bottomless Lake. How are you today, Ferelith?
I'm very well, Rory. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here for your first ever Star Wars interview.
Yes, I know. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I'm very excited as well. It's going to be amazing, and it's great to have you here. Um, so, getting right to my questions for you, Ferelith. First of all, can you tell me how you got into acting?
I can, yeah. I first got into acting in high school. It was a family friend, Lorenzo Dragonieri, who suggested that I audition for this program called the Spring Training Program at the Tarragon Theatre, which is a professional theatre in Toronto, Canada, which is where I'm from. And I got in. They auditioned kind of all over the Greater Toronto area, and they chose 10 kids, and we were exposed to like comedy dell'arte and voice and speech and all sorts of things. And we got to write and perform in our own show in a professional theater company, which was incredible. And then from there, I went and did a degree in international politics at McGill University, natural progression for an actor. And when I was there, I started auditioning for plays, and I got cast in one called Crimes of the Heart. I met my acting mentor there, Jacqueline McClintock. And that's when I started kind of got the bug, and she taught Meisner classes, and I sort of fell in love with that. And then I went off to Paris, another natural progression. And while I was there, Jacqueline was doing classes in Spain and Mallorca. And so I studied over there abroad. I was doing plays in French because I'm fluent in French growing up in Canada. And then, that was when I sort of decided, like, I don't think I see myself having a career in politics, and came back, finished my degree, but got an agent, started working. My first job was on a film called Human Trafficking with Robert Carlyle and Mira Sorvino. And that was incredible. And Jacqueline, at that point encouraged me to go to theater school. So I went to the Neighborhood Playhouse in New York. Studied there, and then I started my own theater company, and yeah, sort of the rest is history. That was the beginnings.
Yeah, absolutely. That's brilliant. Like, not at all natural progressions for an actor. Like, start getting into politics and all that, and ending up as an actor. Like, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Although I feel like there are more similarities between politics and acting than we'd probably like to think. But yeah, I think my my curiosity about learning about different cultures and economic systems and all those kinds of things was a real curiosity that I think's been a through line. But yeah, I think the degree and then sort of going off to Paris, not a normal process.
Yeah, for sure, but still an incredible story. Yeah, and I mean, it did help you later on. I mean, the Twi'leks, after all, have French accents, so
Well, exactly. And so that was just really neat too, to be able to draw on that. And, obviously they're not meant to be French, but I love that George Lucas like specifically requested that, when they were coming up with the rebels and stuff like that. And it was, yeah, wonderful to be able to draw on that for
yeah,
this. Yeah.
absolutely, for sure. Of course, speaking of Star Wars, can you tell me how you were originally cast as Eleni in The Bad Batch?
Yeah, it was an audition that I did here in LA. I have a great agency, SBV, for voice. And yeah, I didn't know it was a French accented like fighter, was all I was told. And so, and it was all very, very top secret for kind of a big stretch of the process initially. So I only found out sort of like when I was recording. I got like all the pieces came together when I finally got the real scripts. I was like, oh my goodness. So yeah, so initially it was yeah, it was an audition like any other seemingly. And then of course turned out to be, yeah, so much more.
Yeah, absolutely. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lucasfilm and Disney, such secretive companies that you just
Yeah.
don't find out until so far along. I mean, like you said, you're literally in the studio recording for the first
Yeah.
time, and that's when you finally know.
Yeah, and that was the same thing for Assassin's Creed. When I auditioned for Assassin's Creed back in Toronto, I the script they gave me, it was funny because I recognized it. It was from an old film. It was from like a Dick Tracy film. And I was like, I recognize these lines. Like, what is this from? And I look, this is from like an old movie. And so, because of course Ned Wynert's character is this sort of like, you know, sort of, at the time, sort of as the character was originally envisioned, sort of this gangly, like, of that era. So I could see why they did that. But yeah, I again didn't find out until I was on the mocap set, like, oh, this is Assassin's Creed. All right. It's crazy. Yeah. They got to keep it under wraps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Were you a fan of Star Wars prior to your casting?
Yeah, I was a huge fan of the films, like grew up with those. I didn't know as much about the Rebels universe, so I learned a lot, through being involved in the project and watching tons of stuff because there's so much now, on Disney Plus, and there's so many, from the different canons, like just so many ways they branched out. So, but yes, I was a big fan, big fan of Star Wars beforehand.
That's fantastic. And what were you told about the character of Eleni when you were about to record your first scene as her?
What I knew was, fiercely loyal, like dedicated mother, like family sort of above all else. And also, a degree of, I think she's great instincts, very direct, and very loving. And I think that was such a those are the women, the best mothers that I know in my life, are warm and loving and also strong and fierce and protective and, have really good instincts, for survival and for protecting the ones they love. So that's sort of what I knew going in.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And were you given a lot of freedom coming up with the voice for Eleni, or did the Bad Batch crew already have in their minds how they wanted her portrayed?
No, I created the voice myself. So again, I think, not knowing, we really went with how I had auditioned. So Brad Rao, who's our director, and Jennifer, who's the writer, they were very like, we love what you did. This is and so I sort of just drew on my experiences of having lived in France, having grown up, partially in French. Because there's a degree. So I lived in Paris for a little bit of my life, and there is definitely, kind of a strength and a sass and a forthrightness that, I even felt when I was speaking in French versus maybe how I would feel when I'm speaking in English, which I think is also the gift of speaking multiple languages. Different parts of your personality come out, and so I was given free reign, really, with the accent, and I also didn't know because I didn't know what I was going into work on. I didn't know what Vanessa did, so I didn't know what Hera's voice sounded like. And because of course, so all of this was during COVID. Like I was cast, in Bad Batch. It was like April. It was, during COVID. So we recorded everything separately. So I only got to meet and hear, the other voices. I don't meet on Zoom and then hear the other voices much later into the process. So yeah, so Brad and I really worked it out in the session, like as we were recording. But yeah, they really sort of trusted me with my instincts, I guess language wise and accent wise. Yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant. But it's also really interesting to hear that you recorded your bits over Zoom because I interviewed the Haley Hall recently, who was one of the elite squad troopers, and when she was originally cast, her early episodes or her first episode were in studio, but then COVID happened, and then the rest of her episodes were over Zoom. So it's really interesting to hear that you recorded everything over Zoom. It was at that point in COVID.
Oh yeah, I mean it was early, and this was even like pre-Zoom. They had their own, Disney has their own like proprietary at the time like version of Zoom, just to maintain privacy so that no one, so I think there's been issues of privacy with Zoom. So it was, yeah, it was pretty incredible. Sort of the blind leading the blind. I think we were all just trying to figure it out as we went, because I was also having to teach myself, to be an audio engineer, and then, record everything on with my recording system, and then have Brad and everyone else, on my iPad on Zoom, kind of Bluetooth into my headphones so I could get direction and notes. But yeah, it was, and then yeah, to not be in the room with the other actors was, but I think for that, Brad was incredible at directing and helping like create the world. And so I understood, the world that I was a part of, because yeah, you're sort of tucked in my little house in Los Angeles, joining this whole new world. So yeah, it was pretty crazy. I can't imagine. Yeah, that's interesting, of like going from in studio to then in Zoom. I wonder, yeah, how that was different. That must have been, yeah, an adjustment. I didn't know anything different, so I was doing my best.
Yeah, absolutely. That's completely fair. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it goes to show how good the performances in the Bad Batch are, really, because with like the Clone Wars and Rebels, like they tried to get the cast members in the studio as much as possible together. And like,
Yeah.
obviously they tried to at the start of the Bad Batch and couldn't, at
Yeah.
some point because of COVID.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I think I remember Brad saying, like, this is crazy. We're never, we're not meeting anyone in person. And there were a couple times when I was coming into sessions where, other people would be recording before me. And so I'd sort of be able to hear a little bit, but you're all those awkward first steps of Zoom for me were as I was doing the Bad Batch, of coming into a meeting too early and someone's, in the midst of doing their thing. And, yeah, it was really crazy. It's really incredible what they were able to do, as you said, given the constraints of COVID. Yeah.
Yeah,
And recording in different home studios. Like,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But it was great that you had so much freedom with the role. Like, you got to create the whole voice for yourself. Like, some crews would just be like, this is how we want the voice to be, just do it like that. And like, but the fact that you not only had freedom, but got to create it all yourself is
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, and for that, I feel like that Brad was just, it was so much fun to like just play with him, and suggest certain things, and he was like, "Oh yeah, 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 great, 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 great." They were both, yeah, both like incredibly, Jennifer and Brad, I don't know, encouraging, supportive, and also just, yeah, trusting my instincts and bringing my ideas to the table. So it was very cool, very
Yeah,
collaborative. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. And uh, I mean, you mentioned, of course, being to Paris before. Like, did you ever like think back on any of your time in Paris while you were doing the voice? Like, anything come to mind that helped you out?
I mean, I think for me, it was more so, the mothers and the women, the French women that I knew there. And when I lived there, so my parents are both European, and we had a lot of family friends. And I think yeah, what I drew on was, the sort of the strength and the sass is, I don't know if that's the right word, but the, sort of tongue in cheek, direct French woman, French women that I knew, and love, that I know and love. I think there was a lot of that kind of directness, and, and being a little wary and sussing things out, and also how she is with Hera. There's a great scene where she's sort of just like, I have my ways. Like, I know what you're doing. I'm not gonna like, I'm gonna like, who do you think who do you think brought you up? I think there's a certain sort of cocksure confidence that Hera gets from her mother, that for me, I think was really representative of a lot of the mothers and the friends of my mom, and the French women that I knew. And so, yeah, there's sort of a, don't try to pull this on me, like pull one over on me. I've been there and done that, So I think, yeah, more than anything, it was the French women that I was around, um, and also growing up in Canada, I very fortunate to have learned French since I was in kindergarten. And I think there's something different that you access when you speak in a different language. And French is my other language. I'm bilingual in, and I feel more, in some ways, confident and direct in French than I do sometimes in English. And whether or not that's because I also have to choose my words more carefully because I'm speaking in a different language. But I think there's sort of a fierceness that I channel when I'm speaking in French anyway. And I think that comes through in Eleni.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's brilliant. I think one of the great moments of Eleni's confidence is at the start of the second episode, where Rampart just knows he can't get through the Cham, and it's just Eleni, you're the less strict one or whatever, or you're the
Yeah.
smarter one or something, and
Yeah.
she's just I I'd prefer to be your enemy, and I was just that's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Oh, yeah. It's and she doesn't mince her words at all, and I think there's a lot of finessing. And again, to sort of connect to the politics, right? Where it's there's a lot of just well, if you shake my hand, I shake this sort of thing that she just cuts right through and is I know who you are. I know what you're trying to do. It's it's not going to work on me, you know? Yeah, I think, yeah, she's a total badass, she's a total badass.
Yeah, she's
You can
brilliant.
see where Hera gets it from. I think it was so exciting to bring that to life, and just to see her with Cham and how she's such a good counterbalance to him and to some of his sort of naive, or some of his sort of naive assumptions about people. And she's very good instincts, I think, about people, and she sees through a lot of bullshit. So
Yeah, absolutely,
yeah.
for sure. So, what is your overall experience like being playing Eleni in the Bad Batch?
Oh, it was incredible. I mean, yeah, it was totally magical, and like we were saying, kind of amazing to be doing during COVID. I ended up going back to Canada to see my parents, and did a full quarantine and all that stuff back in December. And so some of my last recording sessions when I was getting to meet everyone on Zoom was, in my parents' wood paneled attic. My dad helped me build a booth up there. And it was just an incredible experience to be working on, to be working on the Bad Batch and be with my parents, who I love, who I think I also draw a lot from in Eleni, of my mom. And so it was, I think, so much of her sort of true north is family. And my dad and my mom are both, I'm very lucky to have a wonderful, wonderful family, very loving parents. And so it was very special to be doing that and to be at home for part of that as well. Yeah, and then just to be a part of the whole universe and to meet people, and just start to get fan art and feedback and all this kind of stuff has been an absolute honor. It's very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. That's just so nice that you were able to do two things you love doing at the same time, visiting your family and recording for a
Yeah.
show in the attic and all that. That's brilliant.
It was amazing. It was so amazing. Yeah, and then I remember too the first time when I got to see the rendering, and we were, in the final stages, and I got to see Eleni for the first time, and I was, that was so cool. And it was all I could do to not, call my brother and tell him everything, because I was sort of signed and all these NDAs and I couldn't talk about it, but it was so cool to finally to see her, to see what she looked like, and what the world looked like. And I mean, that was incredible. That day was incredible. And that was actually when I was in quarantine that day. I was in, a separate basement apartment of a friend, and had set up another little booth, and, sort of a joke with Brad, where are you now? Because everyone else had stayed in LA, and I mean, I only went to Toronto, and I did so very safely and cautiously, in December. But that was incredible to be, yeah, recording in my own little home, and seeing what it all looked like, seeing the world come to life. that's I think when it really like hit me, the sort of size of it and the weight of everything, I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And what would you say are the similarities you see between yourself and Eleni?
Oh, I would say like fiercely loyal. Um, caring about family above all else. Direct, caring, loving. And she has a great sense of humor. I have a great time. Like she's I think we see it only in a couple little lines where she's, as I was saying, like, don't try to play a player, and she's sort of, and Hera's trying to not tell her what's going on. Like, how did you know? And she's like, yeah, I got my ways. Like, you don't know who you're dealing with. I think that she's a great sense of humor. And she's an optimist, she believes things can be better than they are. And those are all, yeah, qualities that I have. And sometimes it's hard because things get tough, but I do think she, at the end of the day, I think that's where Hera gets that sort of, that optimistic spirit and that strength from. So it was very special to channel that. And yeah, and I think the family and the loyalty, those are all things that I feel very, very much I have as well, are in common with her.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So like Eleni fits in wonderfully into the Star Wars universe, being related to longtime fan favorite characters like Hera, her daughter, and Cham, her husband, respectively. It was fantastic to see the Bad Batch introduce us properly to Eleni, a character we'd only heard referenced before in other media like Rebels. What was your reaction to being cast as Eleni?
Oh my goodness, I was over the moon. I mean, and also to be the first person, to be representing her for the first time. I mean, when Brad told me that, like, this is when he, on our first call explained to me, like, this is the first time where we're seeing her in the universe. I was like, mind blown. It was incredible. It was, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was like, as someone who like watched Rebels like every episode, every week since it started, like, we'd only heard like Eleni referenced. I don't even think she was like named at that point. Like we
Yeah,
just heard her we just heard her like referenced as Hera's mom, and there was like a painting that had the whole family. But that's like
yeah,
all we'd seen of her before. So properly
yeah.
getting to like see Eleni introduced, it was just brilliant.
Yeah, yeah. No, it was, I mean, it's incredible. It's such an honor.
Yeah, for sure. So, what was it
Yeah.
like getting to explore Eleni's character and their relationships with the others?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it was, again, I think the dynamic, her relationship with her daughter, with Hera's, is the most vital. That and her relationship with Cham, I think, yeah, feeling out um, how she's sort of behind the scenes, the one pulling the strings with Cham a little bit, of like guiding him in the right direction, um, and navigating that, and also trying to protect her family. And then also, I think what one of the things that I'm sure is just such so common for mothers, you know, in all generations and all times, is, seeing your daughter start to become like you, and that being both terrifying and also, encouraging. And I think she does start to see all the things that are in her that, that are in Hera, and that sort of like dreamer, optimist, fighter, warrior spirit. And so playing with that and figuring all of that out, yeah, it was wonderful. And also, yeah, exactly, as you were saying before, like how she talks to, yeah, just other characters, and how she's able to, yeah, sort of cut through all the bullshit, and be this voice of reason and this pillar of strength. And I think she's really I think she's intimidating, to a lot of those other male characters, as well she should be. I think she has very highly tuned instincts about people. And so, yeah, getting to sort of play with that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. That's brilliant. What does it
Yeah.
mean to you to be part of the Bad Batch as Eleni?
Oh, I mean, yeah, like I said, it's an honor to be creating this character that's so, yeah, as you said, that we didn't know a lot about, that we'd heard of, but that means so much to so many people in the Rebels universe, especially as Hera's mother, is an incredible honor. And uh, it's yeah, it's magical to be creating, to be the first one creating and bringing this character to life. Um, it's magical.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. What are your favorite memories from your time working on the Bad Batch?
I would say, yeah, like working with Brad, that moment, like he was just so incredible, and Jennifer as well, Jennifer Corbett, who's the writer, the head writer, of just, as I said, really helping me see the world and, explaining what else was going around me, because I was only getting, because it was also top secret, my little scenes here and there. So really painting a picture of what the world looked like, playing, being able to just trust my instincts and bring things to the table and throw paint up against the wall and see what stuck. And then, yeah, and then I think that moment of seeing the first time I got to see Eleni like rendered and, the animation, I was just, yeah, it was a completely, I will never forget that moment. That was the moment where, yeah, it all landed. And as we were saying, in my parents' wood paneled attic, to be, sort of seeing that rendering, and then one of the other special moments was meeting everyone when I finally got to meet people, and it was all on Zoom, but meet people, and popping. One of my favorite memories is actually popping into, I think I was saying this before, with Zoom, where it's like you're all coming into one room and there's sessions that are going on. And I came in early, well, on time, to a session that Phil LaMarr was doing. And I love Phil LaMarr from like comedy days. So I just had like a total out of body, like shock moment of like logging into a Zoom session and seeing Phil LaMarr, working, and then and being like, oh my God, I'm working on this project with him, like this is so amazing. And if like the 18-year-old me could have seen this, like, oh my goodness. So that was like so cool. And then also just like trying to back out really quickly, like, oh no, like I don't want to interrupt the session. But then, and then just getting to meet everyone, getting to meet Vanessa on Zoom, and meet everyone virtually. And they brought us all together to do like a couple lines. This was sort of near the end. I think it was more just so like everyone could meet each other. But yeah, it was the first time I was like, oh, you're playing Cham, like, hi, Robin, and so, and again, wood paneled attic. I mean, in the deep winter of Canada, like in my cozy Canadian garb with my parents downstairs. I mean, it was just, yeah, those memories I will not forget.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. Like, I feel like I'd be pretty awkward if, like, I entered a Zoom call early and, like, there was an actor there and I'm just like, oh my god, it's Phil LaMarr.
I mean, that was me. That was literally, you just described my thought process, where I was like, oh my God, it's Phil LaMarr. And then I was like, oh, I shouldn't be in here. Like, exit, I don't know how like, because at that point, I think now it's all streamlined with like waiting rooms and like people bring you in at different times. But this was so early days COVID that it was really the Wild West. We were just figuring it out. And so, yeah, it was so special. It was, yeah. But I mean, I thankfully just clicked off the video quickly, and then I just sort of freaked out. I was like, oh my God, that's Bill Maher. Yeah, it was so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I feel like I'd be like the one person that would be like, instead of exiting, I'd like mute myself and see if they'd kick me out or not.
Oh, right. Yeah. I don't know. Because it felt like that would almost imply like knowing how. I don't even know that I knew at that point I could just like turn my video off and mute myself. Like, I don't think I hadn't thought that like that deeply about it. It felt like I had actually stepped into a physical room that I was not supposed to be in. And I was like, how do I, for all of those of you who are listening, I'm like pretending to mime being the wall. It's like, how do you just like make yourself disappear? And so it did not occur to me to just mute myself, but that would have been a lot of fun because I would have loved to see Phil Lamar just do his thing. Yeah, I was a huge fan of his on Mad TV. He was like my favorite. So it was very cool.
Brilliant. Yeah, maybe one day you'll get to work with Phil in a studio or something. That would be
I would
brilliant.
love that. I hope so. And I know that, Bad Batch has been renewed for a second season, which is exciting. But yeah, I hope so. I would love to meet everyone. I mean, I haven't met anyone in real life at this point. So I'm excited to meet Vanessa. I'm excited to meet Brad and Jennifer and everyone. So we'll see.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. It would be great to see Eleni back.
Yeah. Wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So what were the biggest challenges you faced while working on the Bad Batch?
I would say that the biggest challenge was basically having to learn how to be an audio engineer because I was recording from my home studio. And now I had submitted auditions that way, but I had never recorded, a full session. And to be doing that for the first time with a Star Wars project that I was, playing originating a character and working with people I'd never worked with that are playing on this really high level. I was learning how to, as we were saying, like have myself sort of Bluetooth to the director, to the crew that was all together, on Zoom, that was directing me, and also make sure that I don't know, didn't forget to press record, for example, or something like that. And so I think, just the learning of all the levels and gain input, all the technical side of it, to be doing that at the same time that you're focusing on performance was incredibly challenging. I mean, that was the most challenging thing by far and away, because everything else, Brad, like I said, was incredibly effective at building and painting a picture of the universe and the world. So that was he was very helpful. They were both really helpful with that. But yeah, the technical side of it, I mean, God bless audio engineers like that. That's a whole other career. So that was, but my agents were also great at just saying, like, don't stress too much. Everyone's just figuring it out, and so if they end up using it as scratch and we go into a studio and re-record, they'll figure it out. So don't worry too much about that. But I was terrified I was going to ruin something.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's one thing to be recording in a studio and knowing, they can handle the technical stuff, like the technical crew,
Yep.
but when you're doing it on your own at home, it's all on you to get the technical stuff right as well.
Yeah. And I never, it was my first time ever doing that. So I was like, oh my goodness, don't screw it up.
Yeah, I'd have been the exact same, and then I'd be like, I'm going to screw it up. I'm definitely going to.
I ended up, because I think for 2 days before that first session, was doing so much work on the computer, just trying to figure out, make sure I knew everything that I was doing, that I ended up, that's I now have, blue blocker glasses, because I was so much screen time. I was getting these crazy headaches. I was like, I have to, it was just, I think it was doing the two at the same time, because ideally, when you're acting, you want to just, it's why you learn the lines back, right, front, center, all the different ways you can do it, so that when you're actually acting, you're just playing and you don't, you're not thinking about any of that. So then to be having to think about the technical side was also, that was definitely a challenge, but it all worked out well. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I do feel like I should apologize to some audio engineer somewhere that probably had to deal with at some point me blowing his ears out, because I'm sure that I didn't get all the levels right. And in fact, I did not re-listen to after I finished recording and I sent them everything. I was like, I guess I could go back and re-listen. I was like, I don't think I'm going to do that. I don't want to feel like I didn't, so I just sent it out into the ether and trusted that it would all work.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's always weird to listen to yourself, even if you're doing another accent.
Yeah. Or just any acting stuff. When you go back and watch it or listen to it, it's like, oh, interesting.
Yeah, for sure. So how does it feel to be part of an amazing Star Wars animated show for Disney Plus in the Bad Batch?
Oh, I mean, yeah, it's incredibly exciting. And it's a whole new world for me. So I'm learning a ton and meeting a lot of new people, and yeah, it's incredible too to be a part of something where there's so many incredible fans and so many people that just know yeah, that love that's so beloved, and that's such a fun thing to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Star Wars has a lot of upcoming content on Disney Plus, with more of The Bad Batch and The Mandalorian, as well as lots of other shows announced, including The Book of Boba Fett, Andor, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ahsoka, Rangers of the New Republic, The Acolyte, and Lando, among others. Are there any characters or storylines you would like to see get Star Wars shows on Disney Plus?
I mean, I think what would be the most exciting would be to see the Rebels in live action format. So I think that'll be my answer for that. I mean, there's so many different stories and extended universe, and the origins of the Jedi is like there's so much cool stuff to explore. But if I had my druthers, it would be live action format of the Rebels. Yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of the fans will be very happy to hear you say that, and hopefully we will get that one day.
That's what I would love. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be amazing. So outside of Star Wars, you're also best known for playing Ned Wynert in Assassin's Creed Syndicate, the first transgender character introduced in the popular video game franchise. What was your experience like performing Ned through motion capture and creating the voice for the character?
Oh, it was incredible. That was my first mocap experience, and it reminded me so much of being on stage. So I had just come back from 4 years in New York City. I'd done theater school. I had a theater company. I was really had only done theater, and I were for the most part had done theater. And so being on the mocap stage was the most similar on camera sort of experience that I'd ever had to theater, because you can be, they can stretch you, they can shrink you, they can do whatever. You can just, you're playing in in make believe, and you're not subject to the same constraints as film and television, visually, right? So there's just so much more that you can do. And I mean, it's the reason I love the voice world is that it's if you can do the voice, and then in mocap, if you can do the mannerisms, then it doesn't matter what you look like. They can make you 12 foot tall, whatever. They can make you a tiny little thing. They can make you whatever the character is meant to look like. And it's really it's almost more I don't know. Yeah, it's like it just, if you can do, it's meritocracy, I guess, right? It's like you can, if you can do the voice, then you can do the character. It doesn't, you're not subject to the same constraints. And then I would say also what was really cool is that on mocap sets, it's almost more like democratic. It feels like everyone's valued really evenly. So the person who's doing like facial recognition is like just as is treated just as valuably as like someone who's coming in to perform or doing a voice. And that's such a good feeling. Like we all sat down, had lunch together, and then it was really cool to also be a part of the first Assassin's Creed that had a female playable character, Evie Fry, played by Victoria Atkin. I mean, that was so cool. And to be the first transgender character, representation is so important. So that was a huge honor, to be a part of. And it was just such fun, really. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's brilliant. And of course, as we've mentioned, I mean, Ned was the first ever transgender character in Assassin's Creed. So what did it mean to you to be able to bring the first transgender character to the franchise?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was, it was a real honor. Representation is super, super important, I think, and especially in the video game world and like just interactive world, I think the more voices that are heard from, it's one of the things that's incredible about, sci-fi or just like any alternate universes. There can be such a opportunity to tell such varied stories. And I was so humbled and yeah, was very honored to be again doing the first, being the first in that franchise. So that was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And like you said, representation is very important. So
Yeah.
it's great to see such a like beloved and iconic video game franchise
Mm.
bringing in that representation.
Yeah, because it's like they have such an opportunity with the reach that they have, to tell all kinds of different stories and to reflect the world, that we live in. And so, yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it was really, I mean, it's deeply important. So it was a real honor. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. So, what was your overall experience like working on Assassin's Creed Syndicate?
Very positive. Yeah, I met one of my like dearest friends, Michaela Cannon, on that. And I met a lot of really good people. It was coming back to Toronto after a number of years away in New York, and like I said, it was incredibly collaborative. And so that was just such a wonderful learning experience that you could have that kind of really, democratic, collaborative feeling that you get in theater, but in something where that's being filmed. So it was both cinematic and theatrical, and that was incredible. Yeah, and also just to really be able to play in one's imagination. I mean, I was credited with I did Ned's character. I was Ned, but I also got a chance to voice little characters here and there. And they're like, "Oh, can you do this kind of an accent?" Great, we'll like throw you in here. I mean, that was just so much fun to do. And yeah, just to play. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's brilliant. Of course, you've also worked on a lot of other fantastic projects like Fallout 76, Titans, and Rain, among others. What was your experience like working on these projects?
Yeah, Fallout 76 was super fun. Joining a whole world, as close as I ever hope that I come to being in a combat zone. And yeah, and then I loved playing Countess Gisella, Almassy, and Rain. That was such fun. The wardrobe was fun. She's so dignified and ostentatious. And I got to play opposite Selena Sinden, who's wonderful. And I met another good friend, Lindsay Barkley, on that, who just made me feel so at home on set. It can be tricky if you're coming in just for one episode to feel, like part of the group. And I think it was Martin Short. I'm not sure if this is attributing to the right person, but I think Martin Short said something to the effect of, because they'll call it a guest star, and he was like, "It's a guest star, like you're a guest in my home, so I'm going to treat you like a guest." And that's how Lindsay made me feel on that set, and that was very special. And then yeah, and Titans was, oh my God, so cool. I got to witness this like epic fight scene. Anna Diop, who played Corey, or plays Corey, like defends my honor against the very lovely Steve Wachowski, who played my not very nice boyfriend in it. But yeah, it was like an epic fight sequence, and it's all choreographed to like Sunny by Bonnie M, which is now a favorite song of mine. And so yeah, that was those experiences were incredibly, yeah, very, very fun. Yeah, and then another, I guess, favorite role of mine that I've done was in Peaked in High School, which I think you referenced at the top. I got to play Maggie in this short film called Peaked in High School. The character was described to me as being a female version of the Big Lebowski, which is like amazing. So say no more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. And what are some of your favourite characters that you've played in your career so far?
Yeah, I would say Maggie in Peaked in High School is right up there. Just female Big Lebowski. I feel like that doesn't even need explanation. And then there's a lot of theater roles that I are very near and dear to my heart. And then I did an indie feature that we wrapped right before COVID, that's still in post production right now, that I'm the lead in, which is also very near and dear to my heart. That's still called the Untitled Desert Project. So I don't know how much I can talk about, but yeah, those are, but definitely I would say, yeah, Peaked in High School is one of my favorites, for sure.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Which has been the most challenging role in your career so far?
I would say the most challenging would be Sam Maclean. I played a character named Sam Maclean on a Canadian show called Diggstown that has been picked up by Fox, actually, so you can watch it in the States. Sam is a schizophrenic, and she's struggling to navigate the disease and remain a professor. And she relies heavily on her sister, played by Stacey Farber, from Degrassi fame. And that show, I think in particular, does a great job. We're talking about representation. That show does an amazing job of representing people on the margins and who aren't being looked after by the very structures that are supposed to be looking after them. So it was, yeah, it was a real joy and challenge to play that. I did a lot of research. It's probably the most research I've done for a role, just to accurately reflect what schizophrenia is like. And I read this incredible book called The Center Cannot Hold by this woman named Ellen Sachs, who is schizophrenic but also a professor. And she wrote this incredible memoir about her life that I drew on heavily for the role of Sam. So yeah, I would say Sam in Diggstown.
Wow, it sounds like it was really rewarding though, with all the work that went into it.
Yeah, incredibly. That's one of my favorite. Yeah, I should say, yeah, maybe back to that question of favorite roles. It's been one of my favorites as well. It's a beautiful show. It's all shot in Nova Scotia, east coast of Canada, for those of you who don't know.
Yeah, brilliant stuff though. My final question for you, Ferelith, do you have any upcoming acting roles or any other projects that you would like to talk about?
Yeah, well, I just wrapped on the weekend a beautiful short film that's called How to Make Shepherd's Pie. It's written and directed by Kristen Carter, and so I'm excited for people to see that and kind of for it to do the festival circuit. And then I'm just about to start shooting, starring in a short film that I co-wrote with my friend Emily Coots, who some of your listeners might know as Lieutenant Kayla Detmar on Star Trek Discovery. We wrote this comedy horror short together about a woman who is terrified of getting pregnant, and we're about to shoot that this fall.
Yeah, sounds like it will be very important, an interesting watch for a lot of people, I'm sure, because
Yep.
very real, very real important issues there.
Yep.
Yeah, so those both sound really interesting, and the How to Make Shepherd's Pie one, maybe people will finally find out that want to know how to make it.
I don't know if you'll actually get the real full. Yeah, you might. There's a lot. The story is really that of a woman leads a life of quiet desperation and is struggles to find her voice, but we do see her, trying to make shepherd's pie. They might not get the full picture of how to do it, but maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. To be fair, I was mostly joking. I did think it was probably
No,
about something else.
Yeah, you're just in the movie, just a person making shepherd's pie.
Stranger things have happened.
Very true.
Well, that's all of my questions for you today, Ferelith. It's been a pleasure talking to you on the podcast.
You too, Rory.
And hopefully we can talk again sometime.
Yeah, I would love that. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. I'll look forward to talking to you again sometime, Ferelith. Thanks again for joining us today, and take care. Bye.
Bye.
Time to wrap up today's show. Make sure to check out our podcast links. Check out our website.everythinggeekpodcast.com/EGP. Check out our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/everythinggeekpodcast. Check out our YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/user/everythinggeekcast. Check us out on Twitter, twitter.com/everythinggeekp. Check us out on Instagram, instagram.com/official-everythinggeekpodcast. Email us at the following email, everythinggeekpodcast@gmail.com. Check out my Instagram, www.instagram.com/RoryWilliamson. Check out Ferelith Yunn's website, www.ferelithyunn.com, and check out channel 1138 where we broadcast live from, www.channel1138.com. Geeks out, everyone.
With the whole job of Obi-Wan, it started as a voice double for you, and while they were still making the movies, and we would do the video games and such. And then once we did the micro series,
I gotta say Clone Wars, because it's such a special role to me, and it's just it was the opportunity of a lifetime. Star Wars is so special to me, and I mean that character is so complex, and